Hey, what's up, LifePoint Nation? You made it back for another week of LifePoint Online. Come on, give yourself a hand right in your living room. If you're driving a car, don't do that, but we are so glad to have you today. My name is Nate. It's an honor, a privilege to serve as the lead pastor, and wherever you're watching this from, thanks for tuning in today. Matter of fact, let us know. Where are you watching it from? Come on, right now. Fire up the comments. Are you in Oklahoma, California, Florida, Europe? If you're watching locally where LifePoint is in the greater Charlotte area, type your neighborhood. Come on, give a shout out to your neighborhood. And if you're a first-time viewer, let me just say thank you for tuning in today. Here's what we want to do. If you write first-time viewer in the comments on Facebook or YouTube and you're watching live, it's only live, we're just going to send you an electronic Connect card. You fill that out, we're going to send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. That's right, just for watching. Like you can be in Europe watching. This applies for you. We want to buy you a mocha latte frappuccino upside down caramel twist or just a black coffee. I mean, like whatever you like. It's just our gift, our way of saying thanks so much for making this a priority today. And y'all, you picked a good day to be a part of LifePoint because we're starting a brand new series. You see it right here, Family Reunion. Here's what I thought. I just figured since the government is mandating and forcing us to stay at home, okay, that didn't come off right. If we are being forced to quarantine and spend more time with okay, this isn't coming off right. Y'all know what I'm saying, right? I just think if this is a season of life where we're at home more with our kids, with our spouse, with yourself if you're single, then let's just take some time and talk about the value of family. Matter of fact, I think a family reunion is something that we can all relate to. You've been to one, right? It's that one time a year or maybe once every 5 years when you get in a car and you drive to a park in the middle of nowhere in the dead heat of summer and you see family that you normally don't see. And we all got that like crazy uncle that you're really shocked is actually still alive. You get that third cousin that you're not really sure if they're blood family or not. And then you've got that crazy aunt who has this weird Carol Baskin relationship with her cats, and she brings her cats to the reunion. Okay, are you that cat lady? And then there's always that like potluck, lunch, and it never fails in the middle of the summer heat on that potluck buffet. There's like potato salad and coleslaw and deviled eggs, and it's been sitting in the hot sun with mayonnaise for like 4 hours. Yeah, and then there's the family like reunion classic photo. Am I describing your family reunion right now? But you know what I love? What I love about family reunions is that it's just a time to reconnect. It's a time to reconnect with family that you don't normally see. That's what I love about the heartbeat of what we're going to go after over the next several weeks. That I want us to really dive into what is the purpose of family, reuniting the union of family. And I get it. Like there's a risk in the fact that I'm going to talk about a very narrow sort of subject because some of you, like, you don't have kids, you're not married, and I get it. You're tempted to log off right now and jump onto another church's live stream, and maybe you should. But before you do that, at least hear me out because I really do believe that whether you're single, you're dating, can't get a date, dating too long, why won't he propose? I'm married, why did I marry him? Should have listened to my daddy. I have kids, don't have kids. I'm divorced and I'm in a blended family. Like wherever you're at, did you know that we actually have two things in common, at least two things in common? The first is this right here. We're all a part of a family. Like we all have family. You're in somebody's family, and how you interact with family, it actually really does matter. And I'm not saying you're proud of your family. I'm not saying you like your family. You might have even had to block them on social media. Hi, Dad. But all of us are a part of a family. The second thing that we all have in common is every family is jacked up. Okay, let me say it a little more pastorally for the internet audience. There's no such thing as a perfect family. Come on, it's true. Like maybe you grew up in a family like I did where your parents are divorced. Maybe you had a child before you were married. Maybe you're a single parent. Maybe you're divorced and now you're in a blended family. Maybe there was abuse in your family. Maybe you never have met your father or even knew who your dad was. Or maybe you're like in the small minority of people watching, you actually were raised by a mom and a dad who loved each other, loved Jesus. Like even if that's you, your family still had issues. You know how I know? Because you're in it. Your mom and dad are awesome, but we all know you. So Okay, now that I just offended everybody watching online today, there's no such thing. Come on, you know this. There's no such thing as a perfect family. And I just think that maybe one of the benefits of what we're experiencing as a nation is that God is using this to get us to slow down, to reprioritize, to focus on what matters the most, the family. Because I would like to propose to you week 1 of this series that what you do in your family will make a greater impact than what you do for your company. Woo, preach it. Come on, bright boy, say it again. That's right. See, I don't need a live audience to preach. I'm preaching to myself because it's true. Like what you do in your family, listen to me, will make a greater impact than what you did in your company. And if you are more concerned about building somebody else's company than investing intentionally into your family, you might have some priority issues. So I encourage you, I'm excited, man. We're going to go after God in this series. We're going to see what God's going to do through this, I believe, in a very powerful way. So today, here's what I want to do. You got something to write with? If not, I'll put it up on the screen for you. I want to speak to you week 1 of family reunion, rediscovering the value of family from the subject, parent trap. Parent trap. So here's my goal. I want to first lay a foundation on the origin of family. Like, you ever thought about this? Like, where did it even come from and what's the purpose? Then I want to talk to all the parents out there about 2 common traps that unintentionally a lot of us as parents fall into. Then I'm going to end the message by giving you what I believe is the most important question that a parent should be asking that only you can answer. So let's kind of dive into this today. Let's talk about the origin of family. Matter of fact, we see the origin and the purpose of family right out the gate in the beginning when God creates creation. Now, you might watch this and you might not be a believer, and I certainly am not imposing my beliefs on you, but I believe that the Lord created everything that we see in creation. And right out the gate, he establishes man and woman, unites them in marriage, and the family is birthed. So let's go to this. Look at Genesis. Chapter 1, verse 27. Here's what it says. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, and he created them. Look at verse 28. And God blessed them, and he said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth and subdue it. Look at that. Be fruitful and increase in number. You know what that is right there? That's God saying, I'm trying to hook you up. Do you notice this? He creates Adam, he creates Eve, he unites them as one, and he says, be fruitful and multiply. Hello. Come on, you know what that is? That's let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about, come on, that's the gospel according to Salt and Pepper. All right. You're not a 90s baby. Maybe for you, it's Boys to Men. I'll make love to you like you want me to. Come on, sing with me. And I'll, baby, all through the night I'll. Come on, give yourself a hand. Life Point Digital Choir. Boys to Men. Come on, somebody. That's some good stuff. I don't even know what you're writing right now. But that's what God's saying. He's like, I've created man. I've created woman, I've united them together, be fruitful and multiply. But then look at the next verse. He says, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. I love this. The Lord is creating creation as we know it. He establishes the husband and the wife. The family is now birthed. But let me ask you a question. What do you think is the goal of family? Just think about that. Like if someone would say, what's the goal? I don't know, maybe for you, you would say words like this. Maybe you would say the goal of family is happiness. Or maybe you would say, no, the goal of family is fulfillment. And those are good answers, but that's not the goal. Those are benefits of the goal. But happiness and fulfillment, that's not the goal of marriage. Happiness and fulfillment, that's not the goal of friendship and dating and parenting. Those are byproducts of the goal. The goal of family is actually the goal of everything that God created. Everything that God created is for 2 purposes. It's always to bring God glory, and it's for your enjoyment. That everything God created, it's to shine glory back to God, and it's always ultimately for your enjoyment. But here's the truth. Are you ready for this? You'll never get the most out of what God created if you're determined to do it your way. Yeah, let that hit you for a second. You'll never get the most out of what God designed if you're determined to do it your way. When I was thinking about this, it actually reminded me of some things that we've been doing during this COVID-19 lockdown. I don't know about you, but man, like my yard is on par. My yard looks the best it's ever looked because like there's nothing else to do. You can't go anywhere. Inside of my house, we've done more house projects in the last 6 weeks than we've done in the last 6 years. Come on, are you with me right now? Yeah. And so one of the projects that we just finished up was we were rearranging our kids' bedrooms. Our oldest son, Shaw, he's 9. He's not just my oldest son, he's the only son. And his 2 little sisters love to remind him that they outnumber him. And so he came to us like 3 months ago and he said, hey, Mom and Dad, can I get my own room? And we're like, you know what? Yeah, we think it's time. You're 9, you're like stepping into your own self. And he's just at that age now. He doesn't want you to see him naked. He showers by himself. It's actually really good. And, so we're like, yeah, we think it's a good idea. So we start to rearrange the room. And one of the things that we did was we purchased a new dresser for his room. And you know how this is, right? Like the dresser is like 5 feet tall, but it comes like in a 1 foot box, which means we opened up the dresser and we laid out all the parts on the floor. And then this next part, this is going to shock you. So just hold on tight. Can you believe this? What we then did was we used the instruction manual provided by the designer of the dresser to build the dresser correctly. I know, right? You're like, okay, yeah. Like, no, when I told you that we used the instruction manual to build the dresser given to us by the creator of the dresser, nobody was shocked. Nobody was like, oh my goodness, you guys are just so conservative. Like, come on, live a little. Yellow, only live once. Why? You didn't do that because you know that if you want to build something correctly, then you need to follow the instruction manual designed by the creator. Come on, if this is true when it comes to furniture, how much more true is this when it comes to family and marriage and relationships? I mean, you realize that the family, it is the most complex, unique, powerful organism that God ever created. I mean, nothing has more of an impact on culture than the family. Nothing can share the message of the gospel than the union of the family. And nothing will have more of an impact on your kid's life than the family that they were raised in. But you'll never get the most, come on, out of God's design if you're determined to do it your way. Now look, I'm not trying to make you feel bad because I get it. There's probably a large percentage of us that are watching and you haven't really been following the way God intended it to be. And maybe you're watching this and you're living with someone you're not married to, or you have a kid, but you're not married, or you're divorced, or whatever it is. Please listen, I want to look through this camera, hear this truth right here, that we serve a God who specializes, who is amazing at stepping into broken situations and repairing and restoring them back stronger than ever. I just want us to see this, that if we're going to get the most out of it, we need to do it God's way. Yesterday is in the past. Focus on today, that we have an opportunity by the way that we operate in family and in marriage to bring God glory, and ultimately it's for our enjoyment. And that's what I love about the author of Genesis. He's like, here's the family, subdue and rule over the earth. Now, I know we don't use that language a lot, like subdue and rule, but this is the purpose. Like, think about it. God wants Christian families, believers in Christ, to impact culture, to lead in business, to lead in entertainment. Why? So we can bring God glory. And here's what's interesting about it. The more you bring God glory, the more fulfillment and enjoyment you get. I'm telling you, it's true. When you make your life not about your story, but ultimately reflecting God's glory, the byproduct is you find purpose and meaning and joy. That's the purpose of family. So if you're ready to accept this high honor and calling now to be a part of a family and to raise kids, then here's what I want to do, parents. I want to talk to you about 2 common traps that a lot of us unintentionally fall into. And here's what I would say. If you're not a parent and you're single or you're married, don't have kids, whatever that might look like, you should take the best notes right now. Because like one day when you have a family, if you ever want to have a family, you could actually avoid some of these pitfalls and traps that so many of us don't even realize, and we fall into it. And so let me give these two traps that we fall into. Number one, you ready? It's what I call identity-based parenting. There it is. It's the trap of identity-based parenting. Now, I want to recommend a really powerful book to you. It's really shaped a lot of my content and how I parent as well. It's a book. Now, it's a creative title. Are you ready? It's a book called Parenting. I know, right? Like, wow, super creative. But Paul Tripp wrote an incredible book that's about principle-based parenting, not method-based parenting. So grab this, Amazon, whatever. I'm not endorsed by them, but it's just a book that I think as single mom, or husbands and wives, great book to read when it comes to the subject of parenting. So here's what I want to do. When we talk about identity-based parenting, I want to take you to Deuteronomy chapter 6. Now, you don't need to log off and find it. I'll have it on the screen here for you. But what I love about Deuteronomy chapter 6 is that this is God reestablishing the nation of Israel as a free nation, meaning that the Lord through Moses has just delivered Israel out of 400 years of Egyptian slavery. And what we're about to find is that even though they are physically removed from slavery, mentally they're still bound. How many of you know that you can physically be in a different position, but mentally is often the hardest challenge? You can be free, but if you don't believe you're free, then you're going to live like you're a slave. Whew, that's a whole nother sermon for another day. And so in Deuteronomy chapter 6, the Lord gives to Moses to give to the nation of Israel what's called the Shema. And the Shema is simply, it's what matters most in Judaism. It's the essence of Judaism, that if you strip everything away as a free nation, what matters the most? And listen to what the Lord told him. Deuteronomy chapter 6, I love this. Verse 4, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength." He says, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Now, if you read that, if you're familiar, you're like, wait a minute, that sounds like something Jesus said. And you're right. Remember in Matthew chapter 22, when Jesus was confronted by the religious leaders and they asked him, what's the greatest commandment? You know what Jesus said was he was repeating the Shema. That's basically what he was doing. When he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, don't miss this. The only way that you can get your true source of identity has to come from a relationship with your Creator God. Has to. Like your spouse, they cannot give you identity. They're going to let you down every time. If you're looking for your identity and purpose and meaning in your career will let you down because at some point, your career is going to end. If you're looking for identity and meaning from success, it's going to fail you because at some point somebody will out-succeed you. And if you're trying to find your identity in your kids, that is really frustrating and disappointing because they can't give you what only God can give to you. And this is what begins to happen. When we're not getting our true source of identity from our vertical relationship with God, we start looking for it in horizontal things that God created. And this is the problem. Created things cannot give you meaning and purpose that can only come from a relationship with Jesus. It's why, LifePoint, watching this online, I am so convinced that how you view and relate to God truly impacts every other relationship that you have. Your relationship with the Lord is the most important. And I wonder how many of us are trying to find our identity in things other than Christ. So you might be wondering, all right, okay, well, how do I know then if I've fallen into this trap of identity-based parenting? Well, I'm so glad that you asked. It's as if you knew where I was going. So let me give you, here's 3 indicators that you've unintentionally fallen into this trap. The first one is this: too much focus on success as a parent. Yeah, now listen, I know we want our kids to succeed. We want our kids to do well. Nobody wants their kid to fail. You want them to have a good work ethic. What they start, they need to finish. I'm all for that. But there is a big difference between wanting your kids to succeed and being driven by their ability to succeed. I just wonder, come on, let's be honest. I wonder if we are putting unnecessary pressure on our kids, that if we're true to ourselves, it has more to do with our insecurity than it does their ability to succeed. I know it stings, doesn't it? But I just wonder how many of us are trying to relive our childhood through our own kids. Yeah, I think identity-based parenting, if it had an icon, if it had a picture, this is what it would look like right here. Come on. You know who this is? I'm going to give you a second. Go ahead, type it in the Facebook or the YouTube comments. This is my man, Uncle Rico. The great movie, top 10 favorite movies of all time, Napoleon Dynamite. You remember Uncle Rico? He kept trying to relive his glory years through Napoleon and Kip, his two nephews, but they had nothing to do with sports. And you remember some of the famous lines like, man, if the coach would have just put me in the fourth quarter, we would have won the game. I bet I can throw this football over that mountain right there. Yeah, this is a picture of what identity-based parenting looks like. And I just wonder, parents, if we're truly honest, how many of us are trying to relive what we couldn't do in our childhood through our kids. And you know what? There will come a point when your kids get older that they will begin to realize that much of what you did as a parent was not for them, it was for you. I know, it's tight, but it's right. It stings, but it hurts. But I love you enough as a parent. I believe that God has given you the most important thing to steward, which is your kids, to tell you that if you're trying to find your worth in your kids, if you're trying to relive your childhood through them, it will fail you and them every single time. Here's the second indicator that maybe you've fallen into this trap. It's when you're too concerned about reputation. There's way too much concern about reputation. One of my favorite quotes in this book, Parenting by David Tripp, God didn't give you your children to build your reputation, but to publicly proclaim his. I love this. God didn't give you your children to build your rep, but rather to publicly proclaim his. And here's the reality. When you're so concerned about your reputation, and what are the other moms thinking of me and my kid? And what are the other dads thinking of my kid on the baseball field or their success? It blinds you. It blinds you, mom and dad, from seeing the unique God-given thumbprint that the Lord has put on your kids. I think one of the greatest responsibilities of a parent is that your greatest role is to call out, pull out the God-given potential that the Lord put on them. That we are called to be architects of our kids' potential. Stop speaking so much to their behavior and speak more to their potential. Yeah, do you see this? Because whatever you speak to the most will indicate to them what's most important. And I'll be honest with you, can I do this? What I'm about to tell you, some of you are going to be like, wow, you're a horrible person. But I'm just going to have a moment of honesty. When I first became a dad with my son Shaw, for the first 2 to 3 years when he was a kid, I didn't know how to relate to him. I was a bad dad. I had all these unrealistic expectations of what a father-son relationship should look like. He annoyed me. I didn't like being around him. And I literally remember telling my wife, babe, I love him, but I don't really like him. I know, like, who says that? But y'all, I'm just pouring my heart out to you if you've ever been there. Because I didn't know how to connect with him. And what happened, let me tell you what changed. It wasn't anything in him. It was God convicting me of my sin. I was way more concerned about my rep than actually pulling out the God-given unique. He is a masterpiece, one of a kind, hand-created by God, uniquely designed, lacking nothing. That was my boy. But I was so focused on what he didn't have that I didn't see all the good that he did have. And you know what changed? Is that God convicted me. Where I can tell you today, he's 9 years old. He is one of the most amazing kids I've ever met. And I'm not just saying that because he's my son. I love him. Our relationship is stronger than ever, that he has a heart that is so big beyond anything that I ever had. And to think that I almost missed all of that because I was so concerned about my reputation. Oh, come on, it's a trap. It's a trap that if you're really willing to be honest and be real, I wonder how many of us have fallen into it, and it blinds you, and you're not pulling out the God-given potential that the Lord put in them. Let me give you the final indicator of this trap. Maybe for you, it's too much emphasis, here it is, on behavior. How do I know if I'm falling into identity-based parenting? Well, too much emphasis on behavior. Now, I'm going to do the final week of this series. I'm going to do an entire message around discipline, around punishing. I think it's so critical, especially in the early developmental years of a child. But let me just ask you this. When you discipline your kid, are you more concerned about their behavior or about their heart? Yeah, can I tell you something today that this actually might be the most important thing that I've said all morning? That if you and I are going to be God's parents to raise his kids, because they're not yours, they're his. If we're going to be the parent that God needs us to be, you have to fundamentally believe and admit that you do not have the power to change your child. And I'm not just talking to the parent of the toddler. I'm talking to the parent of the teenager. I'm talking to the parent of the grown adult who's 30, yet you're still trying to manipulate them and backhand, underhand comments because you actually still think that in and of your tactics, you can change your kids. No, you can't. You know how I can say this? It's because of this right here. Look at this. You can't change them, because you can't save them. That's why. You can't change them because you can't save them. You're not dealing with behavior. You're dealing with something much more severe. Something that is much worse, something that is above your pay grade, parent. You're dealing with sin. And you don't have the ability to change them because you can't save them. This is why if your parenting method is like rule-based parenting, and it's all about the law, it's all about rules, then you are expecting the law of rules to do what only the power of grace can do. Whew, did you catch that? Yeah, you are expecting the law of rules to do what only the power of grace can do. Look, if law and rule could reach into a child's heart and rescue them from the grip of sin, then we never would have had needed Jesus to come. Yeah, so don't be surprised when your 3-year-old loses their mind and they flip out in the grocery store checkout lane because you won't buy them a candy bar. It's okay. Like, don't be surprised, parents of teenagers, when they openly disrespect you in front of your friends. You're going to be all right. It's not an indictment on your parenting. It's not a reflection on you. It's because they don't know Jesus. And even if they do know Jesus, maybe your kid is a believer, God is still, he's sanctifying their heart. He's getting rid of that old flesh mentality and establishing their new identity in Christ. It's why I tell people all the time, y'all need to pray for me. Pray for your pastor. I got 3 kids. None of them are saved. So I don't get surprised when they act like they're not. Now, listen, I get it, right? Because I can only imagine, like, my mom's watching this and my grandparents' generation, and y'all are rolling your eyes going like, what kind of like new age parenting tactic is this right here, pastor? Like, what are we supposed to just let our kids do whatever? Let them find themselves, let them express themselves, no punishments, no rules? Heck no. Look, that is the farthest of what I'm saying. Like, your kids, they need God's law. They need rules. They need boundaries that are going to move them closer to Jesus. They need to understand consequences because life is filled with real consequences. That's not what I'm saying. They need those things. But here's what I want you to grab. Parents, I just want you to begin to realize that the law and rules are really good at exposing your child's sin, but it has no power whatsoever to deliver them from it. Come on, did you grab that? Rules are really good at exposing your child's sin. It just has no power whatsoever to deliver them from it. And if everything in your home is law, rules, guess what? You are raising one of 2 types of kids. You're either raising your kids to be a hypocrite or a rebel. Congratulations. You just raised a first-class hypocrite or a world-class rebel. Because think about it. They are going to adopt to learn how to behave in front of you to get whatever it is they're trying to get. So they learn behavior modification, but nothing's changed on the inside. These are the kids that go off to college and they go buck wild because they're not under your roof anymore. They don't have to pretend anymore. And the next thing you know, you're casually scrolling on YouTube and you see them on a spring break gone wild Snoop Dogg video. And you're going, not my baby. Like, that's not who they are. Yeah, it is. It's probably who they've always been. They've just stopped wearing the mask. Or you're going to raise a rebel. Maybe you're raising a kid that's got a strong will, and everything you tell them to do, they don't do. And everything you tell them not to do, that's what they do. Why? Because the law cannot do what only grace can do. This is what we got to realize. I don't have the power to save my kids. Jesus, I desperately need you. So do you see this? That if we're going to avoid the identity-based parenting, the Shema tells us, number one, I've got to get my mom and dad, I got to get my identity from Jesus. I got to follow Christ. He's got to be real in my life. I love the phrase, parenting is not taught, parenting is caught. Because then and only then can you do the second part of the Shema. Look at it, goes on in verse 7. Here's what the text says. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. He goes on and he says, tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on the foreheads, write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. You know what I love about this? It's as if the writer of Deuteronomy realizes that you and I live in the 21st century with busy, fast-paced lives. In other words, you can do this, but here's the second trap that we often fall into. It's this trap right here. It's unintentional parenting. You don't mean this, but we're not parenting based off of value. And so it's just like, well, whatever comes my way, I let my kids do everything and sign up for everything. And now God's not a priority or family's not a priority. And then Deuteronomy drops this in front of us to say, no, you've got to be intentional. But the beauty is you can do this. Look, like you can actually intentionally disciple your kids. Did you know that? I know your parents didn't intentionally disciple you, but look at it again. Look at verse 7. Because in the text, it tells us how to be intentional. It says, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. In other words, let me say it like this. As you go, talk about God. As you go, talk about God. Yeah, I like that. So in other words, as you're driving in the car, what better opportunity for you to talk about life in Jesus than when your kids are strapped to a seat? It's perfect. They can't escape. Don't hand them the phone. Don't put on a movie when you're going 2 miles down the road. No, that's the opportunity to talk about Jesus, to talk about life. I mean, my life before COVID-19, 3 nights a week, man, we're dropping one off at soccer. The other one's going to baseball. Someone's going to gym class. Dinner time 2 nights a week was me chucking chicken nuggets in the back seat of the car on the way to the next thing. And God's like, that's all you need. You got a car, you got a seatbelt, you going somewhere? Talk about me. When you're at home eating dinner at a table, talk about life. I love that last one. This to me has been so intentional in my family. When your kids go to bed, yeah, even teenage kids, have that as a moment to talk about their day, talk about Jesus. One of the things that I started doing a couple years ago, before my kids go to bed, we pray together, we talk together about the day. And then I started right before I leave the room, and I'll do it a couple days a week, not every day. I'll say to Shaw and Rosalie, I'll say, guys, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. I just want you to know how proud I am to be your dad. And I'll never forget when I first did that a couple years ago, Shaw looked at me without even hesitating. He said, why? What did I do? Now, I don't always get it right in the moment, but for whatever reason, I was like, the Holy Spirit gave me the words to say. And I said, son, I'm proud of you, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You're my boy. You bear my name. You represent me. And so I'm proud to be your dad, not because of what you did or didn't do, just simply because you are my son. Come on, parents, do you see this? That's what the Shema is all about. You can do this. You can do this, dad, even though your dad didn't do it with you. I know you don't like to pray out loud, but guess what? Get a little awkward. Start praying out loud. I understand, single mom. You're busy and you're trying to be the dad and the mom, but you can do this as you live, as you go, impress Jesus. It's not like the author is saying, hey, every Monday and Wednesday, you need to have a 1-hour Bible study at night. Come on, you know that doesn't work for our lifestyle, because the moment you say every Monday and Wednesday, we're going to have a 1-hour Bible study, guess what? Monday and Wednesday is going to get slammed. No, this is about every day as I go. And I want to encourage you. I want to take off some of the pressure. Are you ready, parents? I want to take off some of the pressure, and I just want to remind you that your parenting in and of itself will not save your kids. It won't. You know what you're doing as a parent? You're positioning them to have a relationship with Jesus. You're modeling it for them, you're encouraging them, you're talking with them, you're pointing them back in the right direction. But at the end of the day, take a breath. Their decision to follow Jesus is not up to you. That's not on you to bear. You can begin to do this. And you know what? God, in his infinite wisdom, saw it fit that you would be the one that would steward his kids. You can do this. Don't fall into the trap. So I told you that I would give you what I believe is the most important question when it comes to parenting. Are you ready? I think this is the question that every parent should be asking. Here it is. What kind of an adult do you want to raise? Think about that. Notice I didn't ask you what kind of kid do you want to raise? What kind of adult do you want to raise? In other words, when your kid is 18 years old and they are officially, legally by the government considered to be an adult, what kind of adult do you want them to have aspired to be? Because how you answer this question right here should determine how you're parenting today. What kind of adult do you want to raise? And for Emily and I, can I tell you what we put down? I'm going to tell you, but at the final week of the series. I know that's wrong, right? You're like, man, come on, man, just tell me what you guys put. But that's the thing. I want you to wrestle with this. That over the next 4 weeks, as we talk about manhood and motherhood and dating and marriage and parenting, I want you to be able to wrestle with this. And I promise you, on the final week of the series, I will tell you what Emily and I have literally put ink to paper, there we go, on what kind of adult kids we are trying to raise. You can do this. And so what I want to do is I want to take us back into the auditorium where the band is going to be leading us in a song. And I love this song. It's a new song for our church called The Blessing. And it's really rooted in scripture out of the book of Numbers that talks about the value and the role of family. And my prayer in my heart is that the words of this song would speak life over you, that this prophetically is what God wants for you. And I don't care where you've been, what you've done, what kind of family you were raised in, you can do this. So come on, let's worship through this song.